Hello, humans. I am your host, Bradley Martin, and this is Clearing the Way, a resource for small business. I talk with sales and HR experts, other small business owners, and anyone else that can provide you with information to clear your way to success. My guest today is Doug Patterson, owner of Pennsylvania Packinghouse. Doug purchased the business in 2018. The business was renamed from Mike's Packing in 2016. Pennsylvania Packinghouse works closely with local farmers to provide its customers with quality products. Doug, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's talk about your upbringing, how we got to this point, how in the world you decided to buy a packing house in 2018. But before we get to any of that, where'd you grow up? Let's start there.
So I grew up in Prosperity, so Washington County, born and raised. If you want to go clear back to the beginning, born in 92, so I'm 30 years old right now. Went to McGuffey, graduated in 2010. Okay. So always local.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went to McGuffey. What activities are involved in?
FFA was a big one, obviously, the Future Farmers of America. Ag, it was huge. I played football, didn't like it. I don't like being hit. I'm a small guy.
That's fair.
I played soccer, loved it, but unless you're going to be an Olympic athlete, there's really nothing to do there.
How long did you play all through high school?
Yeah, we played soccer year-round, indoor, outdoor. I mean, soccer was big. But like I said, you can't go anywhere with it. Yeah. So you got to have a career of some kind. And then I rode bulls, believe it or not. So I rode bulls. I started at 8. And I quit when I was 18. Yeah.
So
it was a wild 10 years.
You quit at 18. How in the... Okay. All right. Didn't see that coming. Okay, so you start that at 8. I imagine your parents were based on all of those things. Like, they were in that industry or no?
Not at all. Neither one of them had done it. My mom grew up riding horses. Okay. Dad grew up, with nothing.
What did they do?
Ag. We were going to 4-H meetings. And, as little kids, I saw bull riding on TV, and I said, man, that'd be cool to do, So we go to these 4-H meetings, and just so happened that one of the leaders had background with rodeo. And there's a youth association here in Western Pennsylvania, and we joined it at 8 years old. And it was, and that was the start of my bull riding career.
What does bull riding for an 8-year-old look like?
It's steers mostly, smaller calves and stuff. And then as you get bigger and better, the bulls get bigger and better,
Okay.
Just like the stuff you see on TV, but a lot less pay, basically,
Okay. That is okay. So how frequently did you do that? Were there...
Every weekend.
Okay.
Every weekend. We traveled all over the country.
Really?
Yeah.
So how quickly were you traveling all over the country for?
So 8 years old, I was in grade school, obviously, early middle school. But once we got into high school, we traveled every weekend. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, we traveled all over.
Huh. Okay, yeah. That's crazy. Okay, so as a kid, you're already into 4-H and all of those things. Were you involved in that basically as soon as you could be, or
the 4-H stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because my mom's folks had a farm. Okay. As far back as I can remember, we were raising lambs and horses and stuff like that. Okay. And then we just kind of got steered in that direction, and we stuck with it.
Okay, so you've always been into those things. Okay, so when you're in... Okay, so you're bull riding as an 8-year-old.
Blow your mind.
Yeah, that's... Okay. I'm sure I'll come back to that at some point. But Okay, so you start bull riding. You are in high school. What kind of a student were you?
I was a coaster. Okay. I was, how little can I do and still pass? Okay. You know what I mean? I wasn't the best student. I was, I slept a lot kind of thing. Okay. I knew that I wasn't going to go to college.
Okay.
High school wasn't for me, so college definitely wasn't for me. I did well in what I liked, basically.
That makes sense.
Just like 98% of everybody else.
Yeah.
You excel in what you like and you forget about what you don't. Yeah.
How quickly did you know that you weren't going to go to college? Or that wasn't for you?
At 13, I think I decided that.
Oh, shit. Okay. That's pretty early. And was there something like in particular? Was it just, I'm not good at school, I don't like this? What made you think at that age that I'm not going to college?
At 13, I bought my first cow.
Okay.
Right? It was a steer. We raised him up to butcher, basically. Like I said, we'd had animals our whole life, but we never had any cattle. So I bought my first cow with like a penny jar, you know what I mean? $250 in quarters, dimes, and nickels. And when we raised them up, and I decided, well, we're going to put this in the freezer. Well, I had to pay somebody to do that because I didn't know how to cut meat at 13.
Yeah.
And I decided, well, if I learned how to do this, I wouldn't have to pay anybody to do it, And at that point, I decided, well, you don't have to go to school to be a meat cutter. So I said, well, that's what I'm doing.
That early? That
soon.
Holy damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what led to you wanting to buy that first steer?
To be honest, I don't know. Like we had always had animals, and I said, well, why not a calf? I was riding them. I figured we could kill one and put it in the freezer, and we did. And like I said, we had to pay somebody to do it. I thought if I learned how to do it, we wouldn't have to pay them anymore.
Wow. Okay. Damn. That's early. Okay. Okay. So you go to school. So you like kind of make that decision at 13. When you're going through high school, was that still the plan?
Yeah. I mean, if professional boar riding didn't work out, and it doesn't for anybody, that was the plan.
Okay.
Learn how to cut meat, and then at some point be a professional butcher, if you will. I didn't plan on, buying a butcher shop or opening a butcher shop, but that was just a natural progression of everything.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'll get to that later. Okay, so you're in high school, you're playing soccer, you're leaving school now. What is the next step if that is the plan? What do you do next? You graduate high school, and then what?
For what, professional bull riding?
Well, so at what point did you give up on that?
So when I must have been 17. So I graduated at 17, so I would have been 18. It was the January after I left school, so 2011. I got hurt. I got stepped on my head, and I decided that was the last one.
Okay. Was that the first
major injury?
Okay.
I'd broken a bunch of bones, but that was the first injury to my face, and I didn't want to do that again. So that was the last. That wasn't the last one. We can get into that later, but that was the last one for several years.
Okay. And what happened?
As far as the injury?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I graduated already.
Yeah.
They called everybody in November, December of 2010, said, hey, we're having this big rodeo. We're going to do an alumni deal for everybody that graduated. So I said, yeah. I mean, I hadn't been on one in a couple months, but I was like, oh, we'll be good, So we went to the farm show in Harrisburg. It was the biggest high school rodeo of the year. So they were, trying to put on a big show. They invited all the alumni back. And I got hurt. I mean, bull riding just like an instant.
Yeah.
So he hit me in the head, popped my helmet off, and I landed on the ground on my back. And so I was, face up. And he wasn't trying. He wasn't being malicious or anything. Yeah. He just happened to step on my head. So I spent a couple nights in Hershey Medical Center. And
oh, boy.
They said, it's probably pretty lucky that you're going to have an eye, let alone be alive. And sure enough, I can see out of it, so we're in good shape.
Oh my God.
But I didn't figure I wanted to test that luck too much more. So, that was the last one.
Okay. Yeah, I could see how that would be a little bit of a little eye-opening. Yeah. All right, how many more head-in? I feel like once you get...
You don't want to go back to that well too often.
Yeah. How many how many head injuries until it's like, all right, I think I've had my fix.
Like I said, I always wore a helmet, so I thought, I was safe.
Yeah, you're good.
Well, just the way it hit me under my chin and popped it off. And
well, I'm sure it wouldn't have mattered much if he stepped on your face after.
No.
Okay, so that's the end of. So okay.
That's the end of the bull ride, and I said that's enough for me. Now it's time. And at this point, I had been cutting meat for a couple years.
Okay.
So I was actually working for the previous owner of Mike's when it was Mike's Packing.
Okay.
I worked for her for 2 years at, still in high school, 16, 17, because I wasn't old enough to go to a corporate store yet, because you had to be 18 to go to corporate.
Okay.
Because you're working with knives and saws and stuff like that. So I worked there until I was old enough to go to Giant Eagle, and then I went to Giant Eagle and started there. And that was right out of high school, so that was like November of 2010.
Okay. That's cool. It's like a I don't know. It's a cool situation to see. Like, you made this decision. From the outside, it's a crazy thing to think of at like 13. It's like, that's what I want to do, and then that's what you're doing.
That's
like
what we
out
did.
of high school. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool. Okay, so you're at Giant Eagle now.
Mm-hmm.
What does at that point, like, what's the progression of, like, how do you see that going? So you're there. You've already moved up from the, like, a local spot into the corp. Like, what is the path through that?
So I went to Giant Eagle strictly because they had an apprenticeship program. So
Okay.
they're going to train me and pay me. You can't get any better than that, right? So I started there as a part-time meat wrapper. I mean, as low as you can go in the meat department. And then I was always, what's the next step? What are we doing next? So I worked there for, I want to say a couple months, 6 months maybe, and then I signed up for a full-time meat wrapper job. Well, that took me to McIntyre Square, Giant Eagle, up above Pittsburgh, but that was the closest one that I could get full-time at. So I went there for a couple months. Then I waited for another job to open up as an apprentice. So now I can start actually cutting meat. So I went to another store, became an apprentice, and then from there you test into your journeyman meat cutter, which means you are full-fledged meat cutter. You know how to cut meat by their standards. From there, I was an assistant manager and then a manager, and I bounced around. I think there was 13 different stores in the 7 years that I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. So you got from 18. You said you were there for 7 years,
roughly,
and you made that progression. Okay, is that like standard? Like,
to be honest, I don't know. So
Okay.
I don't know what the record is now, but when I was there, I was the youngest department manager ever hired.
Okay, so I wouldn't say that's the standard.
I don't know if that's the standard progression or not, but like I said, I was always thinking, basically, how can I make more money? What's the next step? And I would ask, and they'd say, well, from a part-time employee, you want to be full-time. From full-time, you want to go to your apprenticeship, and then your journeyman, and then you're an assistant, and then a manager. I was a master trainer for a while, so basically you train other managers, and then I ended up buying the packing house. It came up for sale. I had been working there a couple days a week.
Okay.
Just to help them out. They needed cutters and stuff. So on my days off at Giant Eagle, I was working down there. And the owner came to me and said, hey, we're thinking about selling. And I was like, perfect. Let's do it. So I quit my corporate job and, jumped both feet in.
Okay. So, and at what point did you think that was going to be so you hadn't planned on ever having your own spot?
No, I mean, it was always a dream. You're working for somebody else and you think I can do this myself, but I had never thought, this is going to happen.
Okay, so even like while you're moving up in Giant Eagle, where did you think, before this opportunity came up, what did you think? Were you just going to keep moving up and maybe bounce around to a couple different spots? Like, what did you think was going to happen?
That was the plan, I guess. Stay with Giant Eagle. I mean, the pay was decent. The benefits were great. It was never a bad company to work for. But I had reached the end of, I was a meat manager. a master trainer. The next step would have been what they call a specialist. So you run several different stores like a region. But after that, without a college degree, you can't go any higher in the company. And your salary is capped. Like you can only make X amount of dollars, where if you do it yourself, you make as much as you want to work.
Yeah. You know? So at that point, you were already starting to kind of think like you're going to be branching.
I got to do something else, right?
Okay.
Because I'd reached the end. I mean, I can't go any further.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. And that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty quick. Like 7 years, you're at the end. It's like, all right, well.
Yeah. What do I do now?
Next?
You know. And that was always the question. Like I said from the beginning, what's next? You know, once you hit that what they call it, a master trainer, you're basically a meat manager trainer.
Yeah.
What do you do next? You know.
Okay, so
I didn't want to be the CEO.
yeah. That would have been a crazy come up.
Yes.
that would have been a wild journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and did you have any, like, your grandparents owned a farm? Was there any like business ownership in your family that you saw growing up?
My mom was the first one. My mom still owns a business. She's run it now for 20 years or so.
Okay.
So she was the first one to say, you know, I'm quitting corporate, because everybody else in the family has worked for corporate. You know. We're going back 20 years, so this was 2000-ish. She's been running it since then. Okay.
And what does she run?
She runs Groom and Zoom, Patterson's Groom and Zoom. So it's a mobile pet salon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty wild. When she started that, we told her she was crazy. And she said, I'm going to show you, you know.
Yeah, like 20 years, that's a good run.
And now she's got 4 or 5 trucks on the road. I mean, a bunch of people working, so it's good.
So you had a good example of...
She taught me everything. That's as far as entrepreneurship goes.
Yeah. So when you're growing up, were you involved in that? Like, did you have any... were you involved at all? Like, did you get to witness the business ownership as a kid, at least like consciously?
If I did, I don't remember, to be honest. I just saw, you know, and I don't know if I thought about it like this back then, but I saw she doesn't have to answer to anybody. You know what I mean? She can basically work when she wants and make what she wants, and there is no higher up. Okay.
Okay. So, opportunity to buy a restaurant or a packing house comes up. Okay, great. As soon as that opportunity comes up, was your first thought like, oh, perfect, this is what I'm doing now?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
That's crazy.
Both feet.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. So, so let's talk through like the purchasing of something, because I don't know if I've had anybody. I don't think we've talked about like how that process can look. So if you're open to, we don't have to cover any like numbers or anything, but just the process of how that purchasing of a place like that has been in business for, how long were they there before?
So it's been Mike's Packing since 1962. Okay. So it's been there a while.
It's a long time.
A long time. When she sold, and she sold just because she'd been doing it forever and ever. She's an older lady, so she wanted out of it. She wanted to retire, which is, I mean, that was great. It was perfect. She sold to a local guy. He was looking for an investment company. He had another full-time job, a good paying job. He's an investor. Okay. I don't know why he sold it, but I'm glad he did, because he's the one that sold it to me. Yeah. He's the one who changed the name. So it was Pennsylvania Packinghouse in 2016. Like I said, I was working for him a couple days a week, just helping him out. And he said, hey, you know, I'm looking to sell it. He wanted out. I said, great, let's do it. You know, there was no listing, you know, it wasn't listed with an agent or anything. Like you get online right now and look at 100 different businesses for sale. Yeah. So it wasn't listed. So basically it was him and I and 2 attorneys, and they drew up the paperwork, and money exchanged hands, and that was it. You know, I mean, it was very simple. You know?
How long did that process take? Like from he says, hey, I want to do this, to
6 months. Maybe less than that. Like I said, it was super simple. He hires an attorney. I hire an attorney. They do the paperwork. You know, because I knew nothing about buying a business and he knew nothing about selling one.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it was pretty simple. I mean, you figure you hire a real estate agent to sell your house, they do all the paperwork, you know, same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so relatively simple-ish. Took a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that would normally take, but 6 months doesn't sound
It
that
doesn't
bad.
sound terrible.
Yeah.
There was, you know, a little bit of negotiation kind of thing. This is how much I want. Well, this is what I'm willing to give you.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, if he'd have said, hey, this is what I want, and I said, okay, perfect, I got it in my pocket right now, it'd have been quick and easy. But I think it was as simple as it could have been.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, so so you've got 6 months now that you're going through this. When that opportunity comes up, what was changing in your, like, was the way that you were thinking about your future, like, obviously that changes. Like, you got to change the way you're thinking about everything. But were you immediately, like, in how do I run a business mode?
Yes.
Okay, what did that look like? Like, what, like, okay, so you're, up to this point, you're a bull rider through high school, now on to working in the meat industry and growing through Giant Eagle, but not really considering owning the business yet. Starting to kind of think about it, but not really. So the mindset of an employee versus the owner of the thing. And I guess you had some example from working at Mike's, but like how involved were you in it before?
Oh, I wasn't. Not at Mike's. I was young, 16, 17.
So the only example you really have of that industry at a smaller scale, like you've got Giant Eagle, which is massive.
Huge.
And has to be operating
multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Way differently than what Mike's Packing was operating.
Right.
Okay, so what are those first what does that time look like for you? Like, what are you going through? What are you doing to prepare for hopefully owning this thing at whatever point?
So it was tough. I mean, it was really tough. You know, you go from I know how to run a meat department. I've been doing it now for 5-6 years, but I never done it with my own money. So it was a lot easier to just order whatever you want, you know. But I mean, honestly, you get into it and you're like, wow, this is a big order. You know, how are we going to pay for this kind of thing? And you figure it out. You figure out, listen, if I want to pay myself today, we got to sell some meat, you know. But it was hard. It was very, especially the first year or two, it was very hard.
Yeah. So okay. So before you've owned the thing, before you've made this purchase, were you, okay, so you're still at Giant Eagle at that point until probably the time the sale actually goes through.
Yeah, I gave them a month's notice.
Okay.
So up until 1 month, I mean, I worked it until the last day, you know, but they didn't know that I was leaving until about a month out. Okay.
Okay, so you're there the whole time. Are you starting to think about, like, okay, so you're running the meat department now, but are you looking at that job a little bit differently? Are you trying to learn different things now while you're there?
A little bit, yeah. I was looking for basically vendors. I mean, I'm looking at Pennsylvania Packinghouse right now, working with the owner at the time. And he's saying, you know, this is what we could do. This is what we do now. This is what we could do cheaper, kind of thing. And through Giant Eagle's contacts, I'm looking at who can I buy from? You know, who can I source from to get it basically the highest quality for as cheap as possible? Because I'm going to go from, like I said, using their money to using my own money. So now I got to figure out who I can get it from very cheaply.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a great place to come from then.
Yeah.
Because you've got all of they've got way more access than what I'm sure you,
yes,
any
100%.
Normal spot.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's a huge thing to pick up from them, or while you're still there. Okay. All right, so you're learning about some of the vendors, you're trying to get some of those contacts. When sale goes through, what does that first 6 months look like after?
We were there 24/7.
Okay.
I mean, it was tough, like I said. So Pennsylvania Packinghouse came with a good crew. I mean, a good crew. They knew what they were doing. They were well versed in it, and I'd been working with them now. Keep in mind, I was there for a couple of days a week for the past, say 8-10 months before I bought it. So I'd been working with them. I was very comfortable with them, and my wife and I went in and started running it. She was doing all the office work, all the deliveries and stuff, and I'm in there cutting meat just like I was at Giant Eagle. From more of a hands-on paperwork kind of thing,
Yeah.
So I was comfortable with running the meat shop.
Yeah, that feels easy for you at that point.
I've been doing that for years now.
Yeah.
The two biggest pieces of advice that I got from anybody I asked about running a business: hire an attorney, hire an accountant. They're gonna keep everything straight, and that's what we did. So the numbers side of it that I never saw at Giant Eagle, because I never had to use my own money or account for anything. The accountant handles, so that was a huge weight off my side because I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Again, no business degree or anything.
Yeah.
I knew how to run a meat shop. I can tell you anything you want to know about cutting meat, but numbers are lost on me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is, I'm sure, strange to hear business owners say, but
not really. Like that's, it would be strange for there's a distinction between like, entrepreneur, which is a lot of different things, and then like your normal small business owner. Most of in a lot of cases, like the small business owners are like, yo, we do this thing. We're really good at this thing. I don't know. The numbers, I don't give it. Like,
right.
I have to care about these things.
Yeah.
I know they're important. I'm not good at them, though.
Right.
It's just something that I have to either hire someone for, or I've got to learn to get okay with them. But I'm good at this thing.
Right.
I'm good at baking cookies. I'm good at making whatever the thing is. Like, I'm good at that. And I know that inside and out. But the rest of it is foreign to me.
That's it.
That's
it.
Which is why it's interesting to hear, like, okay, immediately you're hiring these people to help you through those things because you're not good at them.
Right.
Sometimes you can do that. In your case, like, the business is already operating, so that's good. So there's already some basic, like, you're not starting from scratch, which I'm sure there's some difficulty in that. Like, did you find things immediately that were like, oh, we gotta change?
Yeah, so there was a couple things when I was working there. I was kind of, we could do this better. We could, because I had been on the corporate side of it. But like you said, the business had been there since '62.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there were things that the fellow that I brought it from had to change as well. You know what I mean? To make it better or make it more profitable, or just like you do with any other business. But yeah, there were definitely things that I said we could do this better. One of the biggest things was the vendors. We're sourcing this product at this price. We could source it for a better quality because I knew the meat industry. Because I knew what to look for in meat. So there were a lot of things that we changed. There were a lot of things that we didn't change. Looking at it, this has been working since '62. Why change it now?
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a lot of things that we changed.
This episode is brought to you by the City of Washington, Citywide Development Corporation. If you're a small business in Washington and you need another set of eyes on your situation, or you need help growing, you're not sure what's going on with the business, you can't figure out how to get out of the current struggles you're going through, you're just looking for ways to become a little bit more efficient, anything else like that. Or if you don't know where to go next, you don't know who to find to fix whatever the problem is, reach out. The WCDC is a free resource. We're here to help. The links are down below. Reach out. Like I said, it's a free resource. Now back to the episode. Did you have a lot of freedom there?
At Giant Eagle?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Zero.
Okay.
So
you just knew which vendors were available.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that helped me with that. No, at corporate, you order from where they order from, what they tell you to. You know what I mean? With your own, there was a lot of connections that I had to make, but I was able to do that through the contacts that I had made at Giant Eagle.
Gotcha.
I think the transition was a lot easier.
Yeah.
I wasn't just trying to build it from scratch, like you said.
Yeah. Okay, so when the changes that you were making, was there any pushback?
Yes.
How did you manage that? And where was that pushback from? Employees?
Both.
Okay.
Both. So both employees and customers. Customers come in and they say, well, it's been this way since 1962. Why did you change it? Well, because we have to. I mean, that's the solution. And the employees, same way, And I'll tell you this, when we took it over, we have one guy that's still there from when we took it. So no one else has stayed. We either fired them or they quit.
Really?
And through different reasoning, obviously. But yeah, there was a lot of pushback from the employees. Well, we've done it this way for so long. Why are you changing? And they're looking at me. I've now owned it for 5 years. So they're looking at me as a 25-year-old kid saying, what do you know about meat? What do you know about running a business? But I've had to put up with that for the past 7 years at Giant Eagle because they look at me and say, you're 19 years old. Why? I got guys working for me that are 70 and they're saying, I've been doing this 3 times as long as you've been alive, So I've had to put up with that my whole life.
Okay, so how do you initially, how do you work through that? If your employees, if you're getting the pushback on both sides, those are the employees and the customers. Those are 2 pretty important things.
Yeah, those are your 2 biggest things.
How did you work? Well, I guess what were some of those things that you had to kind of change immediately, and how do you work through those on both ends?
So the biggest thing is product selection. What are we carrying that we don't need to carry? What's not selling, basically, and what aren't we carrying that we could try to carry. And the whole, we're going to try to carry this for the first year or 2 was tough because you got X amount of dollars, you're already spending it on what you are already carrying, and you're going to try to bring in new product that you hope sells. So
how are you thinking about those things? What could we sell? How were you approaching what those things could be?
Looking at what I've sold at different stores. Biggest thing is, what's your demographic? Who are we selling to? Age is a huge thing. Are we selling to an older generation? Are we selling to a younger generation? Because they're going to eat different things. And I took that from what stores I had worked at corporately and the demographics that I had at those stores and compared it to where we're at now in Washington as far as what can we sell or what can we try to sell. And then you work those things in slowly because, again, we don't have an endless budget. So you got to work it in, and if it works, great. And we're hoping it works because now we got to sell it. And if it doesn't work, then you eat it. Literally.
Okay. Well, that's...
So product selection is big as far as the customer comes in and they say, why did you get rid of this? Whatever it is. We've been carrying onion cheese since 1962. Why did you get rid of onion cheese? Well, because it was the slowest mover on the menu board, so why carry it? But that was the biggest pushback for them, the product selection. The employees, I guess, was how you run the business, and that's basically comes down to how you manage personalities.
Okay.
I'm going to manage personalities different than the previous owner. He's going to manage it different than the previous owner. So when you bring on employees that have been there for years, they've been accustomed to being managed in a certain way, and then I come in and manage differently by no fault of anybody. That's just my management style, and it's different from the previous owner or the previous manager or whatever the case may be. So managing personalities is the biggest part of the business. Huge, whether it's customers or employees.
So what was different in the way that you were managing compared to either previous or just I guess let's do that.
I think you could blame, and like I said, I've been dealing with this since I started. You could blame it on my age because I'm going to talk to the older generation differently than the older generation is going to talk to themselves. So if you have an older owner, they're going to talk to the older employee differently than I'm going to talk to them. Not potentially in a bad way or in a better way, but just differently, you know.
Okay.
And that was something that I learned from corporate because, like I said, you manage personalities. Whether you're running a crew of 5 or a crew of 500, you're managing personalities. That's the only thing. And you learn how to talk to different people different ways, whether it's age demographics or different backgrounds.
Yeah.
You know, you have to learn to talk to them differently. And that's the biggest thing with business. Like I said, customers or employees.
Yeah. How many people were you managing at Giant Eagle?
Depending on the store. The smallest store I had was probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
The biggest store was probably 20, 25.
Okay.
And that's per department, you know. So, yeah, you had 10 or 12 wrappers, and same with meat cutters, 10 or 12 meat cutters at the biggest one. And then the smallest one, 5 or 6, maybe 7 people.
And how many employees were there when you took over Pennsylvania Packinghouse?
7, maybe.
Okay.
5.
Okay.
Right now we have 4, including myself.
Okay.
So bare bones skeleton crew, and we're making it. So it can be run with less people if they know what they're doing. And the crew we have right now, top notch.
Yeah. Okay. So so those are the 2 biggest immediate pushback: product selection and just
personalities in general. Yeah.
We've got a young manager.
Right.
We've got a young owner now. Okay. And working through, I guess, on the customer side, I mean, it's just like, this is, you know, did you explain, like, how did you approach when you've got those complaints? Like, hey, why aren't you carrying this onion cheese anymore? You've had it forever.
The easiest way is it doesn't sell. You know, we weren't selling enough of it to keep it. Then you could always blame it on somebody else if you wanted to. You know, well, they quit making it. You know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But it all depends on who you're talking to. You know, you could tell one guy, hey, listen, we weren't selling it. Yeah. And then you talk to another guy, and he's, well, you've been selling it for 100 years. Yeah, well, maybe they quit making it. You know what I mean? That's the easiest way to be that we're not selling it. We're not. We can't carry it if we don't sell it because everything we carry is perishable. So it has to be turned over. You have to.
Yeah. Okay. And then on the employee side, you said a lot. You had how quickly did people leave, and how quickly were you like bringing in your own
quickest one
crew?
3 days.
Okay. All right.
We didn't get along. Her and I we clashed from day one. And she had been working there for the previous owner, and I was working with her on the couple days that I was in there. And as soon as I took it over, that was it. And I was bringing people in as quickly as they were leaving. I was bringing them in because this is 5 years ago. So it's that 2018, 19, before COVID and everything else. Yeah. So people wanted to work. They were willing to work. You didn't have to pay them, $7,000 an hour. Huh. So it was easier to bring people in. Yeah. So at one point we had way more people than we needed, which was a good problem to have because now we have the people. Now we're trying to find the work for them, which is good. So we were bringing them in just as fast as they were leaving. It was a big turnover. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you have those 2 immediate problems on both fronts. From the running of the business, did anything come up immediately that you didn't really expect to deal with?
Equipment breakdown.
Oh, that seems like a challenge.
So in the meat industry, coolers are everything. You got coolers and freezers, and everything's run by compressors and condensers. So, and nothing is cheap. Just like I'm sure, like the medical field, right? They know you have to have it, so they can charge you whatever they want. Yeah. And it was rough. It was rough. I mean, we weren't expecting a freezer to go down, or the furnace to break down, or the air conditioner to break down. I mean, all these things. Now we can think back, okay, this broke down 5 years ago, so we can plan for that. But in the first year, I had no idea.
Didn't know anything.
Because if something broke at corporate, you call somebody else and they can fix it.
Yeah.
You know,
you are that somebody else
I am
now.
that guy now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Okay. How many of those types of things came up in that first year that were like, damn?
everything. Knock on wood. If it could have broke, it broke.
Damn.
It was not good.
Okay.
We had I wouldn't say the worst luck, but it was bad.
Okay, so if you were going to purchase, is that something that you think you could get a better gauge on beforehand?
Now that I know what to look for, yes.
Okay.
For sure. Or if I don't know what to look for, at least I know who to call to look for it.
Okay.
Because now, after owning my own business, I have a list of people as far as an electrician, a plumber, a concrete guy. You know, the biggest thing is HVAC because everything runs on a cooler. And when the coolers go down, you got nothing, you know. So now that if I were to, say, build one from scratch or start a second one, call those people immediately.
Okay.
Let's take a walk through, see what's going to need fixed in the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would have been
It was rough.
That would have been a good place to start because those things, like you said, equipment of any sort is never cheap to replace.
No.
Like that can be crippling. Like, okay, so you've got basically everything that needs replaced in the first year.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
It was bad.
Okay, cool. Work through that. Anything else in that first year or so that was like I'm sure equipment costs, having to replace that stuff or repair that stuff, like that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Was there anything like you hadn't at that point? You hadn't had to do any marketing. You hadn't had to do anything in corporate. Your job is your job.
Yep.
Make this work.
Yep.
Make this thing work well. Cool.
Right.
Now you've hired the accountant, you've hired the attorney, so you've got like that stuff kind of off of your plate-ish. Right. You have to worry about it less. From a marketing or like you're making changes, your customers are seeing that. Did you see any immediate like either jumps in sales or decreases in sales after you took over?
No, the sales stayed pretty steady as far as the custom work we do with farmers or the retail work we do with the public. It was pretty steady. Now the custom work we do, I say that as far as like we still slaughter there, so we don't just bring it in a box and cut it up and put it in a case. It's still an actual slaughterhouse. So we bring the animals in live and then, go from there without getting into too much detail for your listeners.
Yeah.
So from the custom side of it, I'm coming in and I know how to cut meat. So we increase that immediately.
Okay.
Because the previous owner was hiring people to do that job.
Okay.
And I don't have to do that. I have a crew that can do that, and I can add myself to the workforce so we can increase that. I wouldn't say we doubled it, but we definitely increased it for sure. But as far as retail, that stayed pretty steady.
Okay.
And then in 2020, retail went crazy because of COVID.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Skyrocketed. Best year I've ever seen.
Huh.
Which is, I've heard both sides of it from businesses. You know, it was either crippling or we doubled production.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. So what prior to that, what would you roughly? What was the percentage of custom or work with the farms to retail?
It's typically half and half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever our bottom line number is at the end of the year, half of it was custom, half of it was retail.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you immediately start and now you can increase production on the custom side, were you able to increase the work or were you just more efficient? Were you taking on new or able to take more from local, or did you just become more efficient?
We became more efficient right off the bat. I didn't personally want to increase more than we could handle because, again, I'd never run it before. So I thought, we're going to, for the first year, I'd say we ran it the way it had been run to see what worked, what's going to work, what's not going to work, and kind of felt it out as far as what can we handle if we were to do more, and then grow it from there. my worst fear was we grow it so fast, I can't handle it, and then it all comes crashing down, you know.
That is a like very good fear to have. Where do you think that, like, knowing that immediately, because I mean I've seen it with a lot of businesses locally that are like, you start doing well for 6 months and you're already thinking about a second location. It's like, that does not sound like a good idea.
No.
But what did you see? Did you have any examples of that you were pulling on? Or?
I think that was from corporate. So we're working, and obviously they have hundreds of locations where I was working, but we're working with, say, a crew of 10 people, and 5 of them leave. Well, now I'm working. I mean, more than I wanted to as a manager.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that not with the people leaving, as far as we have this many people, we can do this much work.
Yeah.
And if I increase it too much, can my people handle it? You know what I mean? Because I was in a place where I want to own the business and I want to run the business, but I don't want to live in the business.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing Night of Giant Eagle.
Yeah.
So I don't want to live there, you know, and we did for the first couple years just because it's a new business.
Yeah.
So we only took on the work that we could handle.
Gotcha. That's a good move.
I didn't want to, like you said, you see these businesses that start out and, you know, you get a year or 2 or maybe 3 years in, and then it all comes crashing because they grew too fast.
Yeah. Yeah, which seems like a weird, like, it doesn't seem super intuitive if you haven't seen it a lot. Like, oh, well, we're just growing. Like, we're just going to keep growing. Right. Everything's good. But it's like, sure, but if you bite off way more than you can chew, then the whole thing fails.
Yeah.
Like, it can be as bad as, oh, we want to open a second location quickly, so we do it. That could cripple both. Yeah. Now both don't exist anymore.
Right.
Which, like, that is a real concern that you should have.
The second location has been a thought now for the Pennsylvania Packinghouse for, I'd say, at least the past 2 years, if not 3. And it might be more scary than opening the first location.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to, there's a lot that can go wrong there. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of cost involved with that. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things to consider there. Okay, so you're holding steady for that first year. How quickly did you start making changes with the product that you were carrying? The management style is like, that's going to change day one.
Right.
Because you're a different human being.
Right.
So, like, there's no easing into that. I guess there might be a way you could ease into that. But how quickly did you start removing and adding things?
Well, that was, I wouldn't say day one, but it was pretty soon.
Okay.
Because I had been working there, so I could see.
Yeah, so you had an idea.
You know, what was selling, what wasn't selling.
Okay.
And then we started bringing in new product as quickly as possible. But like I said, we weren't working with bottomless budget, so we had to do it, you know, slowly.
Yeah.
Just kind of grow into it a little bit. Okay.
So you make it through the first year or so. How quickly, well, actually, I guess, we'll go there. How quickly did it start to feel like it was, like you had a grasp on how to run the thing? Or are you even there yet? Like,
I mean, I would like to think we got everything under control, but
I don't even mean completely under control, because that feels like an outrageous statement. Yeah. But like, how quickly did not confidence, but did you feel comfortable in that role?
I think, so I have a daughter, right? She's 5. She'll be 5 this year in June. And so she was born the year we bought the business, my wife and I. So it was do or die. There is no going back, because now we have a third life to consider. So it was, you know, either get confident and really good at it, or we're going to have to do something, you know, go back to corporate, because we don't have a choice anymore. Yeah. We have to do it. We have to do it well. Yeah. Because now we have, you know, another human that's depending on us. So that I would like to say, like I said, that we have everything under control, but we don't. Yeah. but we had to get good at it really fast because, we bought a business and had a kid same year.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that is a good driving
it has to be.
Driving force.
If nothing else, I love what I do, but if nothing else, it's all for her.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're kind of not thrown, but you put yourself in this situation pretty quickly.
Do or die.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's kind of I guess it depends on your personality, but that can be a good place to be.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're starting to get your feel of everything. You've got a couple changes made immediately. Okay, so looking back on at least the product side, did those changes lead to what you thought it would lead to, which was either quicker turnover in your products, or did it do what you wanted it to do, increase the sales? Do you think those things worked?
I think so.
Okay.
But looking back, we probably don't carry half of what we did when I first took it over.
Okay.
Just because we've now become more specialized in, these products versus trying to carry everything. We kind of slimmed it down to where we can sell these products really well, better than anybody else. So this is what we're going to carry.
Okay.
We don't need to carry onion cheese because number one, it's terrible, but number two, it didn't sell.
Yeah.
So why would we carry it?
Yeah.
But there were things that we brought in that were mistakes, and I was like, oh well, I guess we're going to eat that, because it didn't sell.
When you were testing new things, were you doing them in like what kind of were you doing that in a way that was pretty strategic with the amount of quantities that you were or the quantity that you were bringing in, or was it kind of like, let's just try this thing, let's just get what we think will be a normal, or like how did you approach those things?
So being so small, we can order on a lot smaller scale. So we don't have to order a pallet of something.
Yeah.
We can order one case and try it out. That's the easiest way to do it. I would bring in something, say, just for example, it's a new hot dog, right? We bring in a new hot dog and I buy one case. We try it out. We're going to run it, advertise the heck out of it, try to get it out to the people. Biggest thing, cook it for the employees because they're going to try it and they're going to give me their honest feedback. These hot dogs are terrible, or, man, these are the best hot dogs I've ever had in my life. So now they're going to tell everybody they know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the easiest way to sell a product, especially in the food industry, is have somebody taste it. So cook it that day. Tell everybody, hey, we're going to cook. We're going to cook at noon. Come down for lunch.
Yeah.
And you give it to them. So the first case is more of a sample.
Yeah.
We're going to try it out and see what they think.
And were you doing that for just employees or were you doing some customer sampling too? Or
it would all depend on what it was.
Okay.
If it was something, simple to cook, yeah, we could sample it to everybody. Bring them in, sample it. And I got that from corporate as well. You want to sell a new product? Feed it to somebody.
Sam's Club.
Right. Look at Sam's Club. They do it every day, all day long.
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Which is nice when you're in that, I guess some industries that's a little bit more difficult to do. But food is like,
if you want to sell new brake pads, throw these on your car, sample them out. That's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
But if you're selling hot dogs or sausage or a new hamburger patty or something, throw it on the grill.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, that's a nice. That's where it's nice working in a place like that.
Yeah.
You get to try all the new things.
Yeah.
Okay, so bringing a new product. Yeah, I mean, because you can, that's nice. You can order those smaller quantities, test it out. Okay, cool. After those first, so what was that, 2018, so up to 2020, you've owned it for a couple years. It's starting to become a little smoother. I assume you said you're at like half the products that you were at when you started. Did you do that on, obviously you got to that point on purpose, but were you immediately, like, how quickly are you removing things like you said, immediately there were a few that were just like, we gotta
get rid of that.
We gotta get rid of these. We're not moving them. But at what point did you decide, like, maybe we'll just be more of a specialized place? Or did it just, like, you keep weeding down products and it's like, well, maybe this is like, how were you thinking about that? How did you get to that point?
So basically, I look at, we want to turn over as much product as fast as possible. We're not a warehouse, right? We don't want to warehouse anything because, like I said, everything we have is perishable. So we look at, we have 100 products, and the bottom 5 sell the least. So they're gone. Get rid of them. Now we don't sell them anymore. You don't have to worry about ordering them. You don't have to worry about trying to sell them. Get rid of them. And that's the easiest way to do it. You know, you have a sales report that shows you your top sellers. Always carry your top sellers. Get rid of the bottom. So say you want to carry 100 products, look at the bottom 20, get rid of them, right? Because they're not selling. Bring in 20 more. And you don't do it 20 at a time, but you can do it a case at a time or 2 at a time or whatever. That way you're not wasting money on product that doesn't sell. So it's easy to say you can sell anything once because people are eager to try it, especially new product. You can sell it once. So it's hard to figure out what you bring in a second time. You put it on a shelf, let people try it, they buy it, they take it home, their family says, wow, this is terrible. You know, don't buy that again. But how do you know to bring it in a second time? Because it all sold the first time. It's all going to sell the first time. Because you can sell anything once. But could you sell it a second time? And that's where the hard part is. You know?
How are you how many tests or how are you thinking about those like new products? How do you determine this thing is worth keeping or not?
Like I said, if it sells, great. And customer feedback is huge because they'll come back in, and that's probably the easiest way. They buy it the first time, and they'll come back in and say, "Man, that was great," or they say, "Nah, that was terrible."
Okay.
Most of the time, they're not going to say that was terrible. They're going to tell their friends about it, but they're not going to tell me about it. But you can see that they don't come back in and say, "Hey, man, this was great," and then you know that you don't order it again. You know, or they'll come back and ask for it. Hey, where was that? Whatever it was. Are you guys getting that back in?
So paying attention to your customers.
Customers is huge. You know, they're going to tell you.
Comes up in literally every episode. Right. If you haven't picked that up yet, you got to know who your customer is and you got to pay attention to them.
That's it.
Okay. So you're talking to them, you figure out, okay, this is worth keeping. You're going to have to it's like the lack of hearing about it is probably your indication that it's not worth keeping.
It's not working.
So you're starting to remove bottom 5, we'll say. At what point do you stop removing the bottom? Because there's always going to be a bottom 5.
Right.
Always going to be. How are you thinking about, like, at what point were you, and I'm sure you're going, this isn't a, well, we're set in stone forever thing.
This is an ongoing thing.
This is a constant evaluation. When do you get to a point when you say, we can't really, or we don't really want to remove any more? Or was it just everything that we've got now is selling at a rate that we're comfortable with?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what it is. Whenever you start selling it at a rate that you're not throwing anything away, you're not donating anything, you're not freezing a whole bunch of stuff, you know, because everything we have can be frozen. So if it gets to a point where we can't sell it, we freeze it. And then we either eat it, feed it to the employees, or we can sell it frozen at a discounted rate, just like everybody else. Or donate it. Donate it. Donations are huge in the meat industry because everything's perishable. You don't want to throw it out. You don't want to feed it to your dog, so you donate it. You know, it's still good. It's still wholesome. It's still quality product.
Just not what your customers want right now.
Just not what they're buying, so you can donate it. But you get to a point, and I think we're at that point now where we're always trying new products, but all of our base products are selling at a rate that we're comfortable with selling them, you know.
Okay.
Because if you're not trying anything new, if you're not growing, you're dying. You know.
Okay, so constantly trying new things. Okay, so, all right, so we got the products. We've talked about how you're handling that for a while, which is that's good to think through, because if you're, like you said, if you're not trying to do new things, or if you're just comfortable where you're at, like there's always some improvements to be made with that stuff. And maybe it isn't removing products, but maybe it is. Like you might need to examine what you're spending all of, I guess one caveat to that would be some of those products that don't move quickly might be bringing people in that are buying other things.
Correct. That's the biggest thing.
So that is kind of a weird balance to play. Like if all of the customers that buy a certain thing are also buying another thing, and you remove this thing, and then you lose that's a weird little balance you got to play, and you got to learn your customers again.
So we look at one product in particular. This is the easiest example, right? We carry A1 steak sauce. Okay, shout out to A1 steak sauce. I'm not a big fan of sauce, but it sells anywhere you put it, right? Everybody sells it. It's on every table in America. We sell A1. We can't sell it as cheap as Walmart, Sam's Club, or Giant Eagle because they're buying truckloads at a time, right? But we have it on our case. When people come in and buy steaks, they buy A1 steak sauce because it's there, right? It's convenient.
Yeah.
We're not going to sell it as cheap as everybody else. We're not going to sell it in quantities like everybody else, but we're going to sell it.
Yeah.
So, and it's good for, however long, 10 years or something. It's like Twinkies,
crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can sell it forever.
Yeah.
It's not going to go bad. And it's an additional product that we offer that people buy when they see it, So your meat is bringing them in, and then they buy other things when they're there. Same with, you could sell water or charcoal or different things that you can't sell as a small, minute business cheaper than anybody else, but they're going to buy it when they're in.
Yeah.
Because our meat is better. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's probably a good point here is that rate that you're comfortable with is probably different per product. Because if you're moving through charcoal slower than your meats, that makes sense, and your rates need to be adjusted based on the product.
Per product.
Yeah, so when you're thinking about that, it's not we want everything to cycle through once a week. No. Each product is going to have its own life cycle, and whatever that life cycle is, figure out what you're comfortable with keeping that, and that's how you can look through, we're not moving this as quickly. This one's getting dusty.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Maybe
get rid of that.
Yeah, maybe we need to
once
think
we sell through it, don't bring it back.
Yeah. Okay, so you blow up during COVID, killing it on the retail side. That's great. Coming out of that, how have you been affected, and how are you approaching? Like, we talked about this before? You don't have a website. How are you thinking about the marketing side or the advertising side? You mentioned you get a new product, you'll advertise it. Like, how are you handling some of those things? How did you come out of that situation? Like, So the pandemic helped us when we were very fortunate because it could have went either way, just like it did with a lot of businesses. It helped us a lot. It brought in a lot of new customers, or a lot of old customers that hadn't been in. When it changed ownership and changed names, a lot of people thought it closed. There's no more Mike's Packing, it's gone. Same building, different name, basically. So it brought in a lot of old customers, prior customers that had been there before, brought them back. And you heard that a lot through everything that happened. Hey, we haven't been here in 20 years. We thought you guys were closed. And we retained a lot of those customers. So I wouldn't say that everybody that came back to us, because you couldn't get meat on the shelf at Walmart, they came to us. I wouldn't say that everybody that came back to us has stayed with us. They don't come shopping with us every week, but at least they know we're there. You know what I mean? And we retained a lot of those customers. Now, during those 2 years of uncertainty and economic triumph for everybody, we sold a lot higher quantities because people were scared. I mean, I didn't know what was happening. Nobody. So
instead of buying 10 pound of ground beef to make it through the week, they're buying 100 pound of ground beef to make it through, the next 10 weeks. Because they didn't know. Nobody knew. So the order size has gone down, but the order frequency has gone up.
Okay.
Because now instead of buying one order every 10 weeks, they're buying one order every week, 10 weeks straight. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've retained a lot of that customer base, either prior customers or customers that we brought in because they told their friends, hey, you got to go down to this Pennsylvania Packinghouse. They had it when nobody else did, you know. So I think we've retained a lot of that. As far as advertising goes, we do a bunch on Facebook. Obviously, social media is huge.
Yeah.
Pictures, we do specials, you know, try to do it once a week, if not once a month. And we have a commercial on TV.
Oh.
So that was pretty wild. I mean, we had a professional photographer or videographer come in and shoot this commercial. We ran it in a couple different regions now. Right now it's in the Washington area, and it'll be there all summer. So everybody in Washington should see it. If you're not seeing it on regular, you know, TV, you'll see it on streaming. It's because it's on the streaming services and all that stuff.
That's cool.
Advertising, we've been trying different things. Obviously, social media is huge. We did the commercial. As far as trying different advertising methods, I don't know what to do, to be honest. I mean, you can do billboards, you could do snippets in the paper and stuff, but I would have no idea.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that, it goes back to the same way you're determining your products. It's the same way.
Trial and error.
Well, trial and error, but also knowing where your customers are.
Right. That's why social media is so huge.
Yeah.
You know.
And when you're spending those dollars, it's, you know, does it make sense based on your customers? If your customer base skews way younger, does it make sense to spend it on a commercial? Maybe. You got to look at your customers, though.
Right.
The same as you do with your products. If your customer isn't if they're not watching TV or they're not looking at billboards or they're not looking at the newspaper, maybe those aren't good places to spend money.
Right.
But if they are, maybe they are. Like, maybe those are good. I mean, shit, radio advertising still kills it for some industries. But it's based on where, like, their customers there.
Right.
That's why they kill it. Like, I know several insurance agents that they spend a lot of money on radio advertising and they get a ton of business from it. Right. It's like, I would never advertise on the radio. I thought that was dead. It is dead. Unless your industry works there. Right. Like, unless your people are there. So, yeah, that's a... Okay. So, as you're... as you're becoming... You know, you've owned the business for several years now. How are things from your end? How are you changing? How are you adapting? How are you, the way that you're operating, has that evolved at all? And what are some of the things that are coming up still that are significant challenges that you still are trying to figure out? Like, how the hell are we in this position? Like, how are we working through this?
I think we've evolved through... I don't spend as much time in the business. Okay. So I've heard it several times, and I can't tell you who told it to me first, but you want to work on your business, not in your business, right? Yeah. So
eventually you got to get out of the in.
Eventually, yeah. You got to take the coat off. You got to take your apron off, and you got to go to the office. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's simple as that. And that was the hardest part for me because it's easy for me to cut meat. You know, I know how to cut meat. Yeah. I don't know how to look at the numbers. You know, I can look at them all day long. Yeah. And like you said, I know they're important. Yeah. But how do I increase that? You know, so the hardest part would be, how do I increase business? You know, that's the biggest hurdle we're looking to clear right now. The easiest way for me to increase the numbers is to cut more meat. You know, honestly. Yeah. So the retail store, the way I look at it, the retail store is the retail store. We can advertise as much as we want. We're basically at the mercy of who's walking in, who wants to walk in. You know, if the door doesn't open that day, we don't make money. I mean, simple as that. However, we can increase on the custom side. So we can kill more beef. We can work with more farmers. We can expand our custom business outside of the tri-state area. Yeah. You know, because that's where we're at right now. We're pulling beef from West Virginia and Ohio and Washington and Greene counties. We could go up north, you know, Butler and Newcastle areas. We could go southern Morgantown and that area, if we marketed to those farmers. The trouble is, most of your farmers in 2023 aren't looking at Facebook. You know what I mean? They're old school farmers. They're probably still reading the paper. You know, they've been farming for the last 5 generations, and those are the folks that we need to get in the store and say, how many beef do you have?
Yeah.
How many can we process a year? And how can we increase sales through that?
Yeah.
Because again, you go back to the retail store, we're kind of at the mercy of who's coming through the door, you know?
Yeah. Well, I would argue there that there are like, okay, so the ads that you're doing, those all help. Those help to increase those numbers. The people that are shopping there, knowing who that is, I mean, the same way you just said, they're not, the farmers probably not looking at Facebook, but they are looking at the paper.
Right.
Cool. You can target them there.
Yeah.
But the other thing that that could increase on the retail side is this is some work to be done for sure, but any of those increases, like making it easier or increasing the likelihood that they can stop in the store. But that could be the online store.
Right.
That could be some other version of that where they place the order, they pick it up. Getting into the delivery business with any of that stuff, like that's difficult because now you've got all the shipping that goes with that. But place the order beforehand, that could be an avenue for increasing the people that are going there, because that opens the door to some younger generation that might want to do that, but they don't want to have to drive there and figure out what you got and go through that whole process. But they might be interested in making that purchase, and then all they have to do is walk in. They don't have to interact with anybody. They walk in, say, I'm here, pick up their meat, and get out of there.
So we do a lot of phone-in orders. So people call in, they'll call in, you know, on their lunch break or whatever. Hey, I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whatever time I get done. But we don't have online. So if we could do an online store, that would increase it immensely.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of those, like, that it opens the door to a new group of people, a new avatar, a new customer for you. Like, because like me, I don't like to have to, I've been to a few of the like smaller, I've purchased meat at like some of the smaller places. The thing for me as somebody who is not super comfortable in like the, like, okay, I walk in and I don't know what the hell to do. There's a lot, like, what the hell? I have no idea. Okay, I can go online and just say this is what I want and then not have to feel like an idiot when I walk in. Okay, great. I'll do that. And I'm in, I'm out.
Right.
And especially, like you've mentioned, like people will buy products there that you know are more expensive. But like the other hurdle for me is that there are less, it's an extra stop for you.
Yep.
And that's why people, they know the places like Pennsylvania Packinghouse, you know I'm getting a better product there, but it's an extra stop. So how do I make it as easy as possible for me to make that extra stop so that I don't have to buy it from China or I don't have to buy it from wherever.
Right.
Like,
they're not coming to us to get their milk because we don't sell milk.
Yeah.
You know. So if we made it easier for them to stop in, grab the meat and leave.
Yeah.
Because it is an extra stop. You're right. Yeah. I mean, no matter how specially we make it or how many things we carry that nobody else carries, it's still an extra stop on the grocery list. And
unless I am aware of the extra things, like I have to be, as the customer, I have to know that these extra things are, all of this together is worth the extra stop.
Right.
But maybe one item isn't worth it. So how do I make that either easier or just more likely that all of these things I cannot get at Giant Eagle, I can't get at Walmart. All of these things are staples in my diet now. Okay, cool. I need to come here. And yeah, I think thinking through and like that is a way, adding new customers, that's a way to, because it's not like whoever your customer is now, it's not like whoever isn't your customer, unless they're vegan or vegetarian or whatever. Those are the people that aren't your customer.
Right.
Anybody else that eats meat and lives locally, it's
everybody.
Like they could be your customer.
Right.
So how do you increase the chance that they are your customer?
Right.
Make it easy for them to purchase. Make it easy for them to be aware. advertising is going to help a ton.
Huge.
That's huge. So then adding in that step of in the phone calls, that also helps.
Right.
Yeah, just removing as many hurdles. Like the way I think about those things is removing all of the hurdles or as many as possible for a customer to actually order. Okay. If that's on a website and you've got 30 clicks before you get to the order, like that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to have to deal with. So you want to trim that down. If that's you have to go in the store, okay, well I have to drive there, I have to get in my car, I have to go here, I have to go here. A lot of steps. But yeah, you can like that would be a way to think about how to increase those orders because you're doing the advertising, you're already looking at those things.
Right.
And then like you said, growing the custom side, that doesn't seem easier. Definitely doesn't seem easier because you've got people that are generally probably older and
set in their ways.
They've got a way that they do things.
And if you've been raising beef now, these farmers have been raising beef now for 100 years, they already have a butcher shop. Yeah. They already have somebody they're taking it to.
Yeah.
So to get them to change is hard for people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay, that is interesting. Have you started to try to expand that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think reaching out to your generation, our generation, that are farming, that have been, their dad and their granddad and their great granddad were all farmers. And now we can reach out to them and say, we have a butcher shop. We're on the same level as far as both professionally and maturely. So, you could bring it to us kind of thing. And we've done a lot with younger farmers, as far as, like I said, getting them in the door. Yeah. And it's easier for me to talk to those people because they're our age. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense. It's not like there are no younger people. No. I hope there are younger people or we're going to be in a weird spot.
And they're farming, because people want to get back to that. I think if the pandemic has showed us anything, it is people want to buy their bread from a bakery. They want to buy their meat from a butcher shop. They don't want to go to corporate for everything. Yeah. It's just much easier to.
That's the thing. I mean?
So if you weren't friends with a farmer before the pandemic, you are now because you didn't know where to get your meat from. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything you mentioned this earlier, the bull ride. Okay, you had your last accident for a while.
Yeah.
What came back? What was the?
So, this was last year.
Oh shit! Okay.
Last year, so I'm 29 years old, and my wife sends me a post on Facebook. And it was of the Youth Rodeo Association that I belonged to 100 years ago. They were having an alumni ride. Okay. I said...
Last time you did an alumni, that was good...
Bad.
Okay.
It was bad. I said, let's do it. At this point, I'm married. I have a kid. I have a house. I own a business. What could go wrong? Yeah. So why
10
not?
10 years removed from having your face stepped on.
Yes.
So the memory isn't fresh.
It was not good. So... an old riding buddy of mine got a hold of me and said, "Hey, are you going to this?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." He said, "I'm gonna ride too." And again, he hasn't been on in 10 years either. So we showed up and it was great. My wife came, my daughter came. My daughter has heard stories, but she's never seen me ride before, obviously. Yeah. So she thought it was just awesome, And I lasted about a second and a half, and I couldn't walk for a week, but it was fun. Okay. You know what I mean? And that was the last one. I'll never get on another one
for another 10 years.
Yeah,
there's another alumni event.
Yeah, there is one this year. I said absolutely not. I'm not doing that.
Well, the memory's still fresh. Give it a couple years.
We're gonna go. We're gonna support. We'll buy a hamburger, but that's it. I'm not getting on. It was fun, but. No, I'm definitely not 18 anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything else on the business side that you've run into that we haven't touched on yet?
I I mean,
there's a lot, I'm sure, but like any like significant issues or things that you've had to work through that, yeah.
The biggest thing right now is staffing. You know, how do I find employees that either A, want to get dirty and bloody because it's a butcher shop, or B, want to work? I mean, that's the biggest thing, because there's so many, and I don't know what the true reason is, but it seems to me that we're kind of getting out of the trades as far as nobody wants to be a plumber, nobody wants to be an electrician, nobody wants to be a butcher. You know what I mean? It's all hands-on, very intense, if not physical labor. So it's much easier to sit behind a computer and make, $250,000 a year for some company.
Yeah.
So I think the easiest way to find new employees is to go younger, to teach like when I was 16 and I said, I want to learn how to cut meat. I went to a butcher shop. So to grab these young kids that don't want to go to college and say, I can teach you a skill and I can pay you to do it, because that's what I wanted to do. I want to learn a skill. I don't want to go to school.
Yeah.
And I want to make the money that I want to make. I want to work for it. You know what I mean? I don't want to work for somebody else, and I want to learn a skill. I was told, it was an old meat cutter I worked with at corporate. He said, if you learn how to cut meat, you'll never be rich, but you'll never go hungry because you'll always have a job, and that's what I wanted. It'd be great to be a multimillionaire. I know it's never going to happen, but I know a skill, and my family and I will always be okay. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to instill in the younger generation.
Do you have any relationships with like any of the schools or any of those local, like any of the programs that those kids would be involved in?
Yeah, so we've done a couple tours with different like FFA groups from Trinity. Trinity has an FFA.
That's where I graduated, Trinity.
They have an FFA program now. McGuffey has always had an ag program. Avella has a really good one too. Fort Cherry is big in the FFA. So we have talked to a lot of these teachers, and they've sent us kids. Hey, this one here wants to learn how to cut meat. Perfect, send them in. Different tours and stuff was neat for these kids because it'll tell them, this is what I want to do, or absolutely not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never want. I'm vegetarian now. I'm not doing that anymore. So it's good for them. In my opinion, it's good for them to see. If you ask a lot of people, not just kids, but people in general, hey, where do eggs come from? Well, we get them from the store. Right, but the store makes them.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Part of my job, and one of my biggest jobs as a business owner in the ag industry, is to educate the consumer. That's the biggest thing. Where does your food come from? What is a local farm? And when you go to corporate America to buy your meat, where's it coming from? So there's a lot of questions that either people don't know or don't know to ask. Yeah.
Well, there's that, and there's just, it's easier to think about things as just like, oh, it comes from the store.
Right.
It comes from the store.
I get my milk from the store. Yeah. Right, but where does it come from? Well, the store makes it.
Don't worry about it. I don't need to think about that. Right. It's just easier if it comes from the store.
So I think having the tours with the high schools and stuff, I think it helps them, and it gives me kind of a stream of potential employees.
Have you gotten any, whether they're employees or just like, have you gotten some positive feedback from that?
Yeah. We had a 4-H advisor in the other day say, hey, when can we bring a class in? When can I bring my 4-H group in?
That's cool.
I said any day but kill day, because you don't want to get into that. We'll walk them through the whole process, but I don't want to scare anybody either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm here to educate. I don't want to turn anybody off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
slippery slope.
Yeah, that's a fine line to toe there. Okay, so how else, is there any other way that you're trying to, like, the employee situation That's a difficult one to manage.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You can reach out to as many people as you want. I don't want to go as far as like staffing agencies.
Yeah.
Because you never know what you're going to get. These people that are in with staffing agencies have a lot of skills, but none of them are cutting meat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to call a staffing agency and say, hey, you got any meat cutters? Because they don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's easier to teach. Just bring them up.
Yeah.
Just teach them, as young as you can.
Yeah. Huh.
16, 17, 18-year-old kids that want to work, want to learn a skill, They'll never be rich, but they'll never go hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what sucks about that being the approach, or like the best avenue, is that that's not an easy or quick solution.
No, that's the longest way to go about it.
That is a very long runway for those employees. But I guess not. Like they can work in high school. Right. They can come and work. Right. They can't do the meat cutting.
Right. But they could be exposed to the business. Yeah. We could show them the ins and outs, run a register, meet the customers kind of thing, build relationships with farmers is the biggest thing.
Do you have, I don't know, I have zero knowledge in how this works, but is there a way to offer like an apprenticeship program the same way that you had at Giant Eagle or something like that?
Yeah, basically. I mean, bring them in and put a knife in their hand. That's the easiest way to do it. That's how I was taught. If you want to learn, put a knife in your hand. It's very hands-on. Is there a difference
between that and like bringing somebody in for that and treating it as an apprentice? Like,
no.
Okay.
No. Okay. I mean, they at Giant Eagle, they called it an apprenticeship program. Yeah. But that was basically, we're going to pay you less than a journeyman meat cutter because you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it'd be the same thing at the Packinghouse.
I'm just wondering from an optics for a kid, does it look better to have I'm just like thinking out loud at this point, but does it look better to say, oh, they have this apprenticeship program that is, sure, I'm going to do all these things, but I'm going to learn at the end of this thing and be really, really damn good.
Yeah. I mean, you could call it that, I suppose. Basically, you're bringing them in and teaching them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing, but optically it's like, oh, this is...
They actually have a program to do it.
Correct. It is this like structured thing, which is the same structure as you would do for anybody else who's learning to be this thing. Right. But on paper, it's, I'm working through, I'm progressing, I'm not just... I get hired as whatever the entry-level meat cutter is, and I end up as someone who's legit. Right.
And it would give them a goal. Like, correct. Okay, you're an apprentice. Yeah. Let's test you in 6 months and see where you're at. Yeah. If you're great, fantastic. You're a journeyman meat cutter. Yeah. And now you make more money, basically. And it would give them something to look forward to, something to work toward.
Because that does, I mean, you have, you've got all, you know how to obviously do that. Like, you know how to work people through that. You were doing it. Right. So that could be a way. It just, does it open the door to a ton of more people? Maybe not. Yeah. But it might get a couple extra people in the door because it seems like there is, like you said, there is progression to be made here. And then they can leave. If eventually they decide to leave, it's like, now you have this thing that is a little bit, you're better. You went through our program, our training program, and you can take that to wherever's next. Like, you can tell them you went through all of our training and you're now whatever that title is. But but that could be another way to at least entice people to be more open to the idea, because now it's a program. Yeah. It's like, that'd be an easy thing to, probably an easy, I don't know anything about that, but it seems like it's not that much different than what you're already doing. Right. Just put some titles. Like, whatever those titles are.
That way the kid can tell his friends, hey, I'm an apprentice.
Yeah, that's cooler than just like, oh, I got this new job. Yeah. Like, no, I'm an apprentice, dude. I'm working towards something. Yeah. That's cool.
That's an idea.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we go? We're at about an hour and a half. And we can go for if you've got more, I'm good with. I have nothing planned today.
I got. To be honest, I got nothing.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
We covered a lot. I mean, literally from my birth to where we're at now.
Okay. Anything? Anything important, you already touched on a couple of those important, like, new business owner things. Anything else you'd like to add to, like, hey, you're starting, consider these things? Anything in there?
You're starting a business?
Yeah.
Like I said, hire an accountant, hire an attorney.
Yeah. Get your numbers right.
Numbers are the biggest thing. You know, if you don't know your numbers, hire somebody that does.
Yeah.
I mean, a good leader hires people that are smarter than they are. You know, that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Look at any leader nationwide, worldwide, if you wanted to. They're probably not good at a whole lot, but they are surrounded by people that are.
Yeah.
You know, anybody can do anything if they have somebody behind them that says, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Find your holes and fill those.
Fill them with people.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Where can all of the humans find you and all things Pennsylvania Packinghouse?
Facebook. Okay. Facebook's the biggest thing. My wife does it all, so I have no idea what it looks like. Or, you know, I'm sure you could look up Pennsylvania Packinghouse, like us or follow us or do whatever you do on there.
I'll include those links below.
But yeah, that's the biggest thing. And watch out for our commercial. It's out there.
Check that commercial out. Where is, what's the address? Hours? What are some of those things?
We're at 1600 Wyrick Avenue here in Washington, PA. Hours, we're open Tuesday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, Saturday, 8:30 to 3. And we're closed on Sundays and Mondays. Okay. Because you got to have days.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yes, that is important. Anything else to know about the location? Anything else important?
Nope. The address, I mean, you type in the address to whatever, it'll bring you right to it.
I'll have it all down below. Okay. Anything else before we go?
That's it.
Okay. If you have any guests, any topics you would like to see covered, let me know. If you enjoyed this or if you learned anything, share this with your friends. Like this, comment, leave a review, do all of those things. They're all super helpful. Thank you for coming on. This was good.
If you liked it, tell everybody. If you hated it, don't tell anybody.
Exactly. Exactly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching and listening. See you next time. Thanks.